Welcome to the Glover Cottages. I'm Susan Grice. Last week we had a talk from our New South Wales President Colin Chapman on significant problems emerging in China. Timely because the China relationship with Australia will form part of the white paper Dr. Ken Henry will deliver to the government in September. I asked Colin to give us a summary of his talk.
Well, when you go to China, of course, the first thing you notice is the enormous pace of change. I was there a few years ago and many people were looking rather drab in terms of their dress. Now everyone is very bright and cheerful and well dressed. You've seen in terms of numbers that 500 million people have been taken out of poverty. That's no mean achievement. It's fantastic. But of course you've got to remember that there's the same number of people, another 500 million, who are still living in conditions conditions of poverty which are not much better than those in sub-Saharan Africa. And then there's another 100 million people who are really well off. They form the biggest single market for luxury goods anywhere in the world.
What are the major problems that China faces?
Well, I think there are 5 really. The first one, of course, is this huge disparity between the rich and the poor, a rural big city divide, if you like. You have the people in the east who are all quite well off, and then you have the people who live in rural areas and some of the provincial cities who certainly are not. That is a big, big problem, and it's getting worse. And the second problem is corruption. Of course, China isn't the only country that's got corruption, but in China it's quite serious. And then a third problem is that the population is actually aging.
Let's look first at what you say is an unbalanced society.
Well, one of the problems there, of course, is the household registration system, the Hukai system, which is quite a problem for the authorities to tackle. Under that, people have to register as households in the place in which they basically grow up or live, where their families are. And they register, and that is where they get their kids' education, that is where they get their health care, their pensions, and so on. So if they move, if they go to the big cities in the east and try and find work there, then they don't carry any of these benefits with them. Now there's official immigration to those places, but that's quite hard to get. So most people go there illegally. And then, of course, when things go bad, they're out of a job, they have to go home. And often going home means there's no job for them. And, of course, they can't take their kids with them because the kids can't go to school. They can go to private school, but that costs money. So often the kids and the wife stay back at home, and the breadwinner goes off to the big cities and returns home once every month or every 2 or 3 months. And this makes for a very unhappy society. It's not good. But yeah. Now, it has to be said that this system was introduced in 1958 to stop people from drifting away from the land, from rural production, where they were needed to produce food for this growing population. And also it did stop slums developing in some of the big eastern cities.
What about corruption, and what are the authorities doing about it?
Well, the authorities have taken a lot of measures against corruption. Corruption, the worst sort of corruption, is of officials, particularly senior officials in government departments. Now, you don't get much corruption in the foreign ministry, for example, but you do get corruption in ministries which are responsible for any kind of contracts or where they take money. Now, while I was in Beijing, the head of the taxation department in that city was sentenced to death for embezzling funds. So the penalties are very serious, but on the other hand, a lot of people do get away with corruption, and I think only 3% of those who are actually charged and brought before a court and sentenced actually get prison sentences. So there's a good chance of getting away with it. Now, another form of corruption is buying jobs. Many of the top jobs in ministries are actually allocated not on the basis of who's best for the job, but on who somebody in the Communist Party thinks should get the job. And of course, often those jobs, as I said, are bought.
Now, Colin, the economy, it's still growing. Why is that a problem?
Well, it's a problem because it needs to grow at above 7.5% in order to stand still. Now, the point is that this is a problem because you will not maintain the kind of employment that's needed for the vast Chinese population unless it still does grow. Now, the reason it's slowing down is because obviously Chinese exports are less in demand with a slowing world economy, particularly amongst its major customers, which are in Europe and in the United States. But on the other hand, the high growth that we saw, the 12%, is simply unsustainable, because what that did was lead to inflation and to shortages of workers and very high commodity prices. Countries like Australia benefited from those high prices. But Wen Xiaobo, the Premier, has now set 7.5 as this year's level of growth. And many people that I met when I was in Beijing and Shanghai think that that's too high. The World Bank forecasts that it might go lower than that. I've heard some people talk about it going down to 6% or even 5%. And many economists think that China is in for 3 very difficult years ahead.
And then you've also defined the ageing problem as a worry.
Yes, the ageing problem is a worry because at the moment the population is still growing, but because of the one-child policy, China has been quite successful in keeping the population down. And in 10 years' time, it'll stop growing and start falling. Meanwhile, the average age is very high, and that's particularly true in the regions. You've got 8 workers sustaining each person over 65. In 20 years' time, only 20 years' time, that's expected to fall to 3.
And what will the impact be on Australia?
Well, the impact on Australia is hard to judge. At the moment, Australia is doing okay, but you will have noticed, of course, that prices for minerals or resources have fallen, and that's because growth is falling. And it's fine if things go on at the current level of 7.5, 7.6%, something like that. But if growth were to fall further, then there is a big problem for Australia, because the standard of living which we enjoy will not be sustainable. And it's not just the resources sector. Remember that the Chinese provide our single biggest number of tourists now. And if they stop coming to Australia and the high dollar is a disincentive, then that will impact our country also. The Chinese are the single biggest group of migrants now, and the Chinese also provide the bulk of our student intake. So anything where the Chinese stop spending money in Australia is going to be a problem for us.
Colin, thank you. And you can read more about the AIIA and current international issues at our portal, www.glovercottages@wordpress.com.